Hi, this is David Berkowitz, the Chief Investment Officer of Value Line Partners, a Red Bank, New Jersey money management firm. This is the sixth and final video in our educational series. This one's entitled Your Retirement Guesstimate, the 10-minute yellow pad income analysis. Before we get into the yellow pad analysis, I want to go over the idea of compound interest, how you can get exploding rates of return on your investment. What we're looking at here is three rates of return, 5, 10, and 15% per year. And we're going to start with $1,000 when I'm born. If my grandfather put away $1,000 when I was born, here's the amount of money at age 50 I would have at three different interest rates. At 5%, $1,000 would turn into $11,467. Not bad, but I'm certainly not going to retire on that money. At 10%, that money would have been $117,000. Better, still probably not going to retire on that. But at 15%, it's $1,083,000. Over $1 million at 15%, over $110,000 at 10%, and over $11,000 at 5%. The lesson here is that compound interest matters. The longer you compound, the better, and the higher the interest rate makes a very, very big difference. Another thing that makes a very big difference is the difference in fees. In a typical mutual fund, on an average actively managed mutual fund, you'll pay upwards of 3 percentage points of fees. So what that means is that stocks for the last 100 years have averaged about 10% per year. Now, if you get the average mutual fund here, that means you're going to get 10% per year minus the 3% per year, which means you're only going to have a 7% rate of return. If you invest in our Value Line portfolio, which is a separately managed account and doesn't have all the layers and layers of fees that a typical mutual fund would have, let's say we just get average return for the whole years. We're not saying we're going to outperform. We're not going to say anything like that. We're just saying we're going to get average return, 10% minus only 1% in fees. So this is going to be a 9% return on the black line, and this is going to be a 7% return here on the red line. Let's look at the difference. You can see that in the average mutual fund, in this example, we would end up having $1.5 million. In this example, on the black line, the Value Line portfolio, we'd have $2.1 million. The difference is $633,000. So that means that over only a 20-year period, if you invest in the average 401k plan with average actively managed mutual funds, you're giving away $633,000. There is a better way. It's the Value Line portfolio. But what I want you to understand is that we know there's a big difference in rates of return. And all you're doing here, one of the things you absolutely can control, you can't control the 10%. Okay? You don't know what stocks are going to do, and I can't promise you. All I can tell you is that the last 100 years, they've averaged about 10% a year. But what I can tell you is you can control the amount of expenses you pay. So here you pay 1% and you get a 9% net return. Here you pay 3 percentage points and you get a 7% net return. And that difference is $633,000. Let's get started with our retirement guesstimate, our 10-minute yellow pad retirement income analysis. Question is that I ask anybody that I first sit down with, how much money will you need to draw from your investments, just your investments, during each month of the first year you are retired? And I just want a ballpark, just a ballpark figure. Forget about Social Security and any other fixed or defined benefit pension plans that you have. I just want to know how much you think you're going to need per month in retirement. Let's say that this gentleman answers the question with, he's going to need $10,000 per month from his investments in retirement. Of course, multiply that by 12, he's going to need about $120,000 a year per year from his investments. So he's going to actually, when he retires, he's going to draw $120,000 every year, $10,000 a month are going to come out of his pocket. He's going to pay himself so he can live and do all the great things that he wants to do in retirement, and it's going to cost $120,000 per year. Now, we're going to do a simple shorthand method here. What we're going to do is we're going to take that $120,000. We're going to add a zero to it and make it $1.2 million. And then we're going to multiply it by 2. And that's going to be $2.4 million. That's his number. That's how much money he needs. That's the amount that he needs in order to draw at 5% the income that you say you need in the first retired year. So you're going to need 5% of $2.4 million down here, which of course is $120,000. So that's the number we're going to work off of, $2.4 million. Now the next question I'm going to ask, again, just ballpark. I don't need you to run and get your statements, nothing like that, because this is only a 10-minute guesstimate. But this gets you an idea of what you need. What's the value of your investments right now? Let's say that this gentleman tells us, well, I've got about $250,000 in my 401k plan, and that's the value of all my investments. Great. So we write that down, $250,000. Next question. Ideally then, in how many months would you like to retire? Well, let's say the guy's 50 years old now. He's going to retire at age 70. So that's 20 years. So that's 240 months. That's times 12 months per year. So the answer to the question is, he tells me he's about 50 now. He's going to retire at age 70. So he's got 20 years. That's 240 months. So the question then becomes, all right, 240 months still to go. Before we decide anything, we want to know, how much can you save per month between now and then? How much can you save per month between now and then? Now, without taxing yourself or too much, ignore all the luxuries you'll want to buy in the future. Forget that. How much money can you actually commit to investing during each and every one of those 240 months? So how much can you put away in each and every one of those 240 months? Let's say he says he can do, I can do about $833. And that gets me, multiply that by 12, and lo and behold, that gets me to around $10,000 per year. So every month he's going to take out $833 from his paycheck, which is not a very big stretch. Now he's making about $10,000 a month right now, and $800 represents about 8% of that's going into his 401k plan. So this is not a stretch for this gentleman. So he's going to commit to $833, $10,000 a year to put away for his investments. So now let's remind ourselves what we have going for us here. Now let's put it all together and let's see what happens when we take this plan and we create a portfolio that's expected to yield 10%. That's the blue line here. And a portfolio that's expected to yield 5%. That's the red line. So just to remind ourselves, we're starting with $250,000. We're currently age 50 and employed, and we expect to retire in 20 years at age 70. We're committing to save $10,000 per year. And after retirement, we think we're going to need about $120,000 in that first retirement year. And what you can see here is that at 10%, and the only way to get an expected return of 10% is if you invest in rising income investments, which are either businesses or stocks of really good businesses or rental real estate. For our purposes, it's stocks of good businesses or shares. So we're talking about investing in a diversified portfolio directly of stocks of good companies. Now, what happens at 10%? At age 70, when you retire, you have $2.3 million. At age 70, at 5%, which is a combination of stocks and some fixed income investments for quote-unquote safety, you have $1 million at age 70. Well, then, what happens? At 5% at age 79, you go bankrupt. You no longer have any investment left. And that's because with inflation at 3%, your amount you're withdrawing increasing at 3%, so you can maintain the same purchasing power at retirement as you started with, that you're only earning 5%. You're earning 5%, you're withdrawing 5%, and then you're also increasing that by 3%. So you're actually withdrawing money on a net basis because you're not keeping up with inflation at 5%. Now, at 10%, we have the same thing. 10% minus the 5% that you're taking out, which is about $120,000 per year, increasing at 3%, you still have rising income. And that means that at the same age of 79 that you go bankrupt, you're going to have $3.5 million. That's a big difference. All the way to 95 years old when you die, you're left with $9 million. And of course, you're still bankrupt in the 5% scenario. The moral of the story is you need to plan. You need to have the confidence that you're going to have enough money in retirement. And you need to be able to understand these parameters and to create an investment program that is more likely than any other allocation or any other investment program to get to where you want to go and maybe even increase and accrete yourself some wealth and leave yourself a legacy when you go. That's all I have for you. Thank you very much for listening to our video series. Have a wonderful time investing. And please, if any of you need any help with this 10-minute exercise, give me a call. I'm happy to do it at no cost. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.